진심을 때려줬어요.
The header is good, and it's the tight defender John Tae-wook, and eventually Korea have broken the deadlock.
You're listening to the KLU United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, annyeonghaseyo. For the very last time in 2020, I'm Ryan Walters in the Kim Do-hoon bunker, which we've always lovingly called it. I'm here in the, for the Patreon listeners, you can see the actual Kim Do-hoon bunker as it is without sponsorship behind me. And I'm joined by the usual hosts of this season, Matthew Binns.
Hello.
Ooh, a new microphone, Matthew Binns. And with the headset on as always, the ET fingers in full effect, it's Pete Hampshire.
Hello, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Great. It's the holiday season. ACL is finished. There was some blue team from Korea won. We didn't actually come on and talk about that earlier this week. Congratulations to Ulsan Hyundai on picking up their second AFC Champions League title, putting them on level pegging with Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors for the Continental titles. So they've got something going there for them anyway. But yeah, congrats to Ulsan. All sorts of fun seeing a Korean team lift the trophy. And we're not going to be going into that too much today because we don't have time, because it is the 22 teams of K-League, gentlemen. Matthew, this was pretty much your brainchild, I think, 2 years ago. This is our third edition, right?
This is our third edition. I don't know whether I can take all the credit, because I think Paul had a lot to say with it, with puns being his speciality, and I'm sure he sent us some lovely puns in for today as well. But yeah, no, we're just going to run down all the teams and chuck in a few festive puns here and there, get in the festive spirit, and put some people on the naughty and nice list.
Yes. We will be going through all 22 teams, starting at the bottom of the K-League 2 table, working our way up. And the three of us are going to play Santa. We have writers from across the country and globe, really, that have chimed in with a 2-minute season review for their team. And we'll be hearing from them throughout. And then the three of us are going to decide if they go on the naughty or nice list. So, gentlemen, we've got all sorts of things to get into. Get your eggnog ready if you're listening at home. Those of us together here don't quite have the eggnog. I do have a hot toddy that I will be drinking. But
I've never tried eggnog. Never tried it.
Oh.
We don't either. Me neither. Is it any decent, Ryan?
I mean, I'm lactose intolerant, so I have the dairy-free version these days, but it's boozy and festive, so I like it.
I don't get that in Halifax. It's not an option.
If it's not in Halifax, it's definitely not in Gimje.
Well, then cozy up under that blanket and get the fire ready, because it's time for the 22 teams of K-League Miss. We start with 22 Owls Oglen. It is Chungnam Asan, and to go through the season that was, here's Bronco Balan.
Things finally took a turn for the better once the summer rolled around, after the club had gone winless in their first 9 matches, securing only 4 points in the process. They drew 1-1 with Ulsan Greeners at the end of June, which was followed by their first ever win in the division, a 2-1 success against Gyeongnam FC, as Philip Helquist and Lee Jae-gun got the goals needed for all 3 points, while Baek Sung-dong replied for the Reds. That was followed by a 1-1 draw with eventual promotion winners Suwon Fc. Late summer into early fall also saw a spell of success for the Owls, a stretch which also saw them go unbeaten in 3 straight, including the first 2 clean sheets in club history, 2-0 against Bucheon FC 1995 and 1-0 against Seoul Eland. The biggest win of the season came later in the campaign, a 3-2 shocker against Daejeon Hana Citizen, with Bruno netting the winner with just 2 minutes left in regulation. Chungnam Asan opened the season going winless in their first 8 matches, which included a 5-0 drubbing at home to Suwon FC, who were eventually promoted to the first division via the playoffs at the end of the year. They managed to score just 5 goals while conceding 14 over that stretch. They also finished the season winless in their last 5 matches, failing to score a single goal. Bae Soo-young is the Young Player of the Year. The 22-year-old center-back played in 23 of 27 matches for the Owls this season. Despite his young age, he established himself as an important presence in the back as the season progressed. Despite some early growing pains, he grew into his position and has the potential to be a solid player for years to come. Lee Ki-hyun is the team's MVP. He played only once in the first 7 matches of the season, a 1-1 draw away to Chunhum Dragons in Gwangyang at the end of May. Once he did re-establish himself as the number 1 between the sticks, results started to improve for the team. All 5 wins by the club in their first season in K-League 2 came with him in goal. The team also lost quite a few close matches along the way. Things could have been much different had the team been able to perform at a higher level up the pitch. Player personnel will again be a major focus over the winter. Kim Kang-kook is set to return to Incheon United at the end of the year. Bruno, who joined the team on loan from Ulsan Greeners over the summer, will return to the Green Wolves. Eun Bom returns to Jeju United, and Kim Chan will return to Pohang Steelers.
All right, thank you so much, Bronco. And gentlemen, Chungnam Asan in their first season as Chungnam Asan. Naughty or nice list, Pete?
Yeah, it's got to be naughty, hasn't it? All the way down there in 12.
Yeah.
Oh, 10th, sorry.
It felt like 12th at times.
Yeah. There was a little group of 4 at the bottom of K-League 2, wasn't it? And they've managed to see themselves all the way down to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like the 4 naughty boys at the back of class. Yeah, and I think, Asan, they're definitely on the naughty list.
Yeah, I'll make it unanimous. You can't finish bottom of the league and not go on the naughty list. So that's where they go. All right, up next, we have 21 Shrinkin' Violets. I think this one was yours, Mr. Binns. No, I mean, it's mine.
But
I'm taking the team, but Shrinkin' Violets was yours, so I'm not taking credit for that. Anyway, let's talk about FC Anyang. What went well for them? Well, they had the second most losses in the second division this season. That doesn't sound great, but they were very rarely out of the match. Just 4 of their 14 losses were by more than a single goal, and those came against Jeju, Daejeon, and Suwon Fc, the teams that finished at the top of the table. The team, as constructed, is actually pretty close to being able to compete. They just need to fix a few things in the offseason, which leads into what didn't go well for them. Well, the defense shipped the second most goals in the division with 38. Only the Owls, the Aglan Owls, as we've now deemed them, were worse. Yang Dong-won and Jung Min-ki both split time in net, with neither finding too much joy there. Nilsson Jr. was decent, but not Buchon decent, so a step back for him there. Young Player of the Year, and Pete, I know this one will excite you. Meng Sung-eung is definitely the Player of the Year for FC Anyang. While most of the world indeed had a crap 2020, it was not crap for this young man. He won the AFC U23 Championship in January, and then in the season this year, he managed an 88% passing accuracy on over 1,000 passes, had 86 interceptions in 24 appearances, only 18 of those starts. So you know he's getting the job done when he's in there. And he was accurate on 78% of his passes into the final third. The team MVP, Maxwell Acosti, it was a career year for the Ghanaian with 7 goals. Maybe it could be a little bit better with just 7 goals there. But that was only in 19 appearances for him. So that's a promising thing to build on for next season. The biggest decision of the offseason for them is who's going to help Acosti score goals. 23-year-old Kim Kyung-min was second on the team and could be ready for a larger role, but remains to be seen. I think they need to hit with their foreign signings going into next year. And I was rushed for my notes, so I wasn't able to fit in any puns for that one. I apologize.
Paul will have enough lined up later, I'm sure, for all of us.
Indeed. Naughty or nice list? Let's just keep the same order. Pete, what do you think?
Yeah, naughty list again. Yeah, there's a couple of players that I'd fancy Guangzhou having a look at in that squad, but like Meng Seng-eung, as you mentioned, but still a naughty list.
Matthew?
Yeah, naughty list for me. I just, they had a few talented players there, but couldn't really do anything with them.
Yeah, they were always going to drop off compared to what they did last year, but that's a little too far of a drop. So, yep, naughty list. All right, let's move on up the list, down the list, however you want to say it. We've got 20 Hermes hurtin'. Hermes being the Bucha 1995 supporters section. And
it really works when you have to explain it as well.
Those are the best jokes. The best jokes are the ones that you have to explain at length. And explaining the season at, not at length, a very concise season review. Here's George Slade.
Season that started brightly, with 4 wins in the first 5 matches, quickly descended into an incredibly frustrating and disappointing 8th place finish for Bucheon. However, even though they declined, Bucheon continued to show glimpses of competitiveness, being one of only 2 teams to beat 2nd place Suwon FC twice this season. Their defence kept them in a lot of matches this year, conceding goals on a level on par with playoff sides Gyeongnam and Daejeon. The Young Player of the Year, Kim Gang-san, was a key part of this defence, playing 20 matches and performing well in his first pro season. However, their main problem in 2020 was their attack. Scoring only 19 goals this season was poor, especially as if they continued last season's goal-scoring rate, they should have scored 37 this year, which would have almost guaranteed a playoff place. A team record 8-match losing streak in a 10-match winless run was a new low for the club. Frustratingly, a large amount of these losses were by only a 1 or 2 goal deficit. Most disappointing player Jefferson Baiano was brought in to provide the threat up front, but just 1 goal in 11 appearances in an injury-hit campaign saw his contract terminated before the season was over. This contrasts with season MVP William Barbio, Buchon's other foreigner and a constant source of attacking energy, involving himself in 20% of Buchon's goals. Buchon's new manager Lee Young-min has replaced Song Sun-ho and will have to work hard to keep hold of the defence and midfield core of the squad, while investing in attack in order for Buchon to challenge for the playoffs next season.
Thank you so much, George. And gentlemen, let's do this one more time. Pete, naughty or nice?
Well, I know you two love a day out down at Buchon when can get there, but it's still got to be the naughty list, just considering how much they let it slip this year, because they were firing at the start and slid all the way down into that bottom 4.
Matthew?
Yeah, naughty for me as well, for exactly the same reasons. You just can't be that bad on the way up to Christmas.
I want to say nice because the media officer is nice and the stadium's nice and the kits are nice, but the team was not. They were very naughty on the field this year. So, yeah. Unanimous yet again, naughty list. All right, let's move on to 19 Wolves a-weepin'. Pete, what you got for the Green Wolves?
After competing towards the playoffs last year, it wasn't as good this year for Ulsan Greeners. Kim Gil-shik's side, they won 2 of this season's 3 Line 4 derbies, though, against Anyang, finishing in 7th at the top of that mini-league. The Green Wolves had to recover from losing key players this year, such as Vintychenko and Jang Hyuk-jin, but they did manage to climb away from the bottom of the table when it looked like they finished bottom. They didn't possess enough creativity in the middle of the park this year, and also lacked a prolific goal scorer, netting just 18 times in 27 games, which is actually the worst record out of all the 22 teams. This year, the Twas Stadium was certainly not a fortress for Ulsan, winning there just twice in the league all season. In terms of young players, Kim Min-ho featured 20 times in a defence that actually conceded less than Gyeongnam this year, and Chae Gon-ju was the regular pick as an under-22 on the wing. The MVP, Kim Ryun-do, he's always seems to be in the conversation in K-League 2. He scored 5 goals and was integral again. In terms of disappointing players, Felipe Augusto, he was hoping to fill the void of Vintychenko, but only scored a couple of goals. And going into the off-season, well, they finished fairly strongly, Ulsan, so it's keeping that momentum going for them. And I'd say they need to bring in a fox in the box to tuck away some of those chances up front.
Oh, you could have said elf on the shelf, Pete. You missed it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll start with you here. Naughty or nice list?
Naughty list.
Yeah, naughty. It sounds like I'm just repeating, but yeah, naughty.
Yeah, it's got to be Cole for them. That's, again, a team that outperformed themselves last year, kind of fell off this year. If they were just a little bit higher, and if they were at least in contention for the playoffs, I think that would have put them on the nice list, but can't put them there. All right, let's, speaking of almost in the playoffs, up next, we have 18 Dragons drumming for promotion. It's the Chunhum Dragons. And so much went well for them in Jung Kang-jun's first full season in charge. They had second best defense in the league with just 25 goals conceded, 10 clean sheets in 27 games. And we should have made the playoffs if VAR didn't exist. If one of Julian Christofferson's 35 goals against Seoul Elan would have counted, then we would have been in the playoffs. But I'm not bitter. It's fine. It's not like a ton of time had passed. I'm still very bitter. Anyway, what didn't go well? Well, speaking of Julian Christofferson, pretty much everything at the other end of the pitch. Jeonbuk scored just 31 times this season. Christofferson led the way with 5. Lee Jung-ho had 4. And considering they missed the playoffs by just a single point, even a few more goals would have been massive this year. Young Player of the Year is Lee Yoo-hyun. Over 1,500 minutes played for the 3rd straight season for the Gwangyang native. Shout out to Gwangyang. 80% passing accuracy, 83 interceptions, 65% action success rate, 64 duels won. And he's also just a fantastic attacking threat coming out of the back. That's why he's wearing the 11 shirt. He hasn't always played at the back, but I think it's been a good conversion for him back there. Team MVP has to be Park Jun-hyuk. As mentioned, there were 10 clean sheets this season for the Dragons. All of them were his in 24 appearances. Just 0.86 goals against average on nearly 100 shots against. Outperformed his expected goals against. And he's just fantastic with reflex saves, commands the box well, and probably has the best thighs in K-League too, and loves to show them off. Most important decision of the offseason, who the hell is going to lead this attack? It was just anemic this year. If there was anybody that could have scored some goals for the Dragons, I think they would have been in the playoffs. I think they would have been a real threat. So they've got to find somebody to at least get in double digits next year. So that's the Chunhum Dragons season that was. Pete, we're just going to keep starting with you. Naughty or nice list for my beloved Dragons just a few days out from Christmas.
I'm a bit worried about Park Jun-hyuk's thighs because my girlfriend's just moved to Gwangyang, so that's stressing me out a bit. I actually enjoyed watching Chunhum this year every time I watch them on the telly, and it looks like I'll be down in Gwangyang a fair bit next season, so I'll put them on the nice list.
Hey, Matthew?
Yeah, they were improved on last season, so I guess you kind of say nice, but as you said, they just look lackluster up front, and with the money that POSCO can afford to give them, possibly. Well, maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, they should be doing better. But nice. Begrudgingly nice.
Oh, well, that was very nice of you. I didn't expect this much out of them coming into the season. I think had you told me beforehand that they would just barely miss out on the playoffs, that would sound about right. They might have underperformed a little bit, but they're the Chunhum Dragons, so they go on the nice list because they are the nicest team in the world. Everybody should go and buy a Chunhum Dragons kit because they're the best. Anyway, we're going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about the top half, not the playoff field, but the top half of the K-League 2 table. We'll be right back.
Fans, we want to hear from you. You're encouraged to email KLU at info@kleagueunited.com or tweet at K-League United with any questions, comments or reactions. Or follow us on Facebook to ask directly during one of our live shows.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, joined by pretty much everybody on the K-League United staff this week, but in the virtual Kim Do-hoon bunker, I'm joined by Matthew Binns.
Hello.
And Pete Hampshire.
Hello, boys. Very nice to hear from everyone around the country.
Yeah, I always enjoy this edition of the podcast, getting as many voices in as we have. Not everybody is in on this one, but most folks are. And one voice that we absolutely could not go without, as always, is here for 17 likable leopards, and that is Michael Redmond talking about Seoul Eland.
2020 was a pivotal year in the history of Seoul Eland. A side that finished last in the previous 2 seasons, the Leopards needed a big campaign if they were going to show their worth in the K-League. Although the capital club missed out on a playoff spot in heartbreaking fashion on the last day of the season, it has still been a memorable year for the faithful fans of the club. A lot of things have happened in the off-season which boosted Seoul with confidence. First, that change in the managerial role came when Chun Jun-young was appointed to take the helm. A manager known for his excellence in the 2019 Under-20 World Cup, leaving the Korean national team to the final. The boss brought in some young established stars in Kim Tae-eun and Lee Sang-min. He also brought in Ko Jae-eun and Jang Yeon-ho, who boosted the midfield throughout the year. Seoul also woke up and played some good football when they needed it the most. Seoul went undefeated against Chunhum Dragons, Daejeon Hana Citizens and Gyeongnam this year. Now Seoul had a good season, but they didn't have a perfect one. There were just some teams they just could not beat, and normally it was actually teams lower than them. Now this is a big problem because you need to be beating teams every single week. They're teams against Anyang, Asan, Ansan. These are games that they just dropped too many points against where they should have been easy 3-0 wins. The Young Player of the Year was Kim Dae-hyun, what an exceptional young defender who's bossing it up and down the wings throughout the season for Seoul. It goes without saying that the team MVP was Leandro. The man absolutely changed the game when he was on the pitch, scored goals for the boys, and actually also ploughed down the field to score whenever he could. Seoul's biggest decision now in the off-season is to keep these players and start working as a unit and a team. They need to keep the players they've got now to keep this exceptional team. Seoul could have a special year next year, just if they could stay together.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. And Pete, we're back to you again. Seoul Eland barely missed out on the playoffs. Naughty or nice?
It's got to be nice, I think, for them. You don't often see many players from abroad coming and making impact like Leandro either.
Yeah, nice for me. I mean, there's a reason why we just called them likeable leopards. They completely changed their perception in everybody's eyes. They were really fun to watch. So, yeah, nice.
Naughty for taking the playoffs from me. No, it wasn't their fault. It was VAR's fault. Yeah, Seoul Eland, it's just nice to see that team be entertaining, be competitive, and pick themselves up as much as they did this year. I don't think they can be anything but nice this year. So how did it go? This next one we might not feel the exact same way about, and that is 16 Citizens Kursan. That is Daejeon Hana Citizen, as they are known now, and with a delightfully pun-filled review of the season that was. Here's Paul Neat.
In 2020, Daejeon reached the playoffs and it was a step in the right direction, but ultimately, Purple's losing to VAR was not the most wonderful time of the year. Uncontrolled, lacking sense, and VAR, not the gifts for the baby Jesus, but Daejeon's 2020. CEO Ho Jung-moo's hands-on approach and a lack of leadership skills essentially cost Daejeon that and VAR. Young player, E.G. Sol. It was jingle all the way for E.G. Sol. The 21-year-old centre-back played in most of Daejeon's games this year. He ranked very high in K-League 2 for blocks, tackles, aerial duels, and clearances. Hark the herald purple sing, glory to the newborn king. Andre Luis adapted very quickly to K-League life, scoring on his debut and finishing as the league's second top scorer. Without his goals, Daejeon would have finished at the opposite end of the stable. The most disappointing player was Bruno Bayao. The link may well have been in the Bruno Bayao, but we just didn't see it often enough. He did begin to work well with Edinho, Andre Luis and Kim Sung-sop towards the end, but there wasn't enough goals from him, certainly towards the beginning of the season, and in the end, the board decided to let him go, let him go, let him go. The off-season, in the bleak midwinter, Daejeon chose Lee Min-sung as their new manager. Whether he'll be by highest heaven adored, the everlasting Lord remains to be seen, but for now it's time for Daejeon to find an identity.
All right, thank you, Paul, for singing and everything else involved there. Peter, just back to you, naughty or nice for this one?
That was amazing. I don't think any of us are going to top that one away. I think also, this is where it gets interesting on the naughty or nice as well, because I'd say naughty, even though they finished fourth, because of how they're expected to finish at the start of the season. And they've got players like Andrew Luiz, on paper the best player in the league, and finished fourth.
Yeah, I mean, they invested a lot. They're expected to get promotion. They had a lot of injuries, especially to the goalkeepers, not just Kim Dong-jun. But yeah, it's still got to be naughty, I think, with that much backing. Fourth is not good enough. Second or third might have been forgivable.
Yeah, we might disagree on one of these, but I'm also going to say naughty just because, yeah, you can't underperform that much. And also, look, I'm not a huge Hwang Sun-hong fan, but you can't get rid of him mid-season like that, especially after he just won a game and expect different results. Naughty. All right, let's move on to 15 Reds are running down the clock to try to get promotion. It's Chunhum FC, who unfortunately couldn't run down enough of the clock against Suwon FC to get promotion. And to take you through the 2020 season, here is James Edrupt.
Sol Gi-hung took his first professional manager role like a duck to water, taking the Reds to the promotion final to only lose out to a last-scarf Suwon penalty. What went well for the Reds? The way manager Sol took over the reins at Gyeongnam was a breath of fresh air for all involved. His training methods and ideas were welcomed by all of the squad, and he was generally liked by all of the players. The Reds were always competitive in games and scored freely throughout the season. What didn't go so well for the boys? The impact of the foreign players at the club were very underwhelming, to say the least. Dutchman Luke just couldn't nail down a first-team spot. Brazilian Negaba just couldn't recover fully from a serious Asia injury he picked up a year ago. And Serbian marksman Eric Deric started the season okay, but then picked up a season-ending hernia problem. An Australian defender, Nick Ansell, fell into the rotation system Sol loved to use. Defensively as well, the Reds were below par, letting in 37 goals, the third worst in the K-League. The young player of the year for me, there's only one choice. It was an easy one. This goes to Chojon on loan from Ulsan Hyundai. The maturity of the 21-year-old right fullback was for all to see, and he was brilliant, bombing down the right-hand side of the wing and putting in some lovely crosses at times. Team MVP. For me, the unsung hero of the team was on-loan midfielder Jeonbuk from Jeonbuk. The work the man does on and off the field often went unnoticed. He was a great personality in the changing room, and on the pitch, he hardly ever misplaced a pass, and he popped up some very important goals for the Reds. Next season, Sol Gi-hong had to recruit better all throughout the squad and tighten up defensively. If the Reds addressed this problem and all these obvious issues that occur when being relegated, then the 2021 season could be a fruitful one for all involved at Gyeongnam.
All right, thank you so much, James and Pete. We're back to you again. Naughty or nice?
I haven't seen much of Gyeongnam this season in terms of playing. Lovely stadium, as we always say.
It's one of the best. It's one of the best.
Yeah. I'll say Santa's deliberating over what he's going to do. He's being kind. He's putting him on the nice list.
Okay.
Yeah, I think nice. You finish that close to promotion, you can't really be that naughty.
I'm going to say naughty. Because if they had this talent all year, and they did, for the most part, should have done better throughout the season. Sorry, Gyeongnam. I do like them a little bit. Nope, naughty. Sticking with it. All right, we're moving on to 14 Castles of Climbing. Matthew, it's your former season ticket team, Suwon FC.
Yeah, and well, they're up. Suwon FC, under care of manager Kim Do-kyun, a manager with no prior professional managerial experience, stormed the K-League 2 in a way we expected of them in the last two seasons. The showings weren't always glamorous, but there was a steely determination that saw them maintain a title push, and comfortably seal second at the end. It nearly all went wrong in the playoff final, were it not for some divine VAR intervention, but there was no denying their efforts were deserving of promotion. So leading this charge was An Byung-jun, the North Korean striker who delivered on the promise of a decent first season blighted by injury to score 20 goals for the side and power them to the top flight, bagging the league's MVP award on the way. His calmness in front of the goal was best encapsulated by his promotion-winning penalty, nearly 10 minutes into extra time, perfectly placed to seal top-flight football for the side once more. And his performances were further complemented by that of Masatoshi Ishida, who proved to be one of Kim Do-kyun's shrewdest signings. Transferring in from Anton at the beginning of the season, Ishida added to the attacking dynamic, scoring 10 goals and making 3 assists in the process. Perhaps the biggest issue with Suwon then was their lack of standout young player, with the side offering the fewest minutes to under 22 players and often being found guilty of taking them off before half-time. Midfielder Ha Jong-woo saw the field the most out of the manager's under-22 picks, making 18 starts, but being subbed off in 17 of them. Kim Do-kyun may have delivered a Christmas miracle, but he was certainly a Scrooge when it came to kids. One player who did disappoint, though, was Danilo Alves, who only made 12 appearances in the season, with 7 being starts. Alves did manage to bag 3 goals, however, but will have been frustrated at the lack of game time. The biggest question heading into 2021 for Suwon then is, can they keep hold of this core squad now larger sides have seen their talent? Gangwon has already been rumoured to be after Ishida, while An Byung-jun is naturally attracting suitors. Ensuring these players stay will be crucial to the side's survival if they are not to endure the same fate as they suffered back in 2016.
Yeah, big off season ahead for Suwon FC right now. Pete, put them on the list. Naughty or nice?
Yeah, the nice list. I really hope we get to see An Byung-jun in the at Suwon next year. It'd be interesting to see how it gets on.
You mispronounced Gangwon there, Matthew.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, I nice, 100% nice. Really good season from them.
Yeah, I can't put them on the naughty list. I think there was that slip in form at the end there, but if Jeju doesn't go and do what they did, which Bronco Balan will tell you about in a little bit here, then Suwon wins this league. It was a really nice season for them, and happy to have the Suwon Derby back again next year. So nice list. All right, and as already mentioned, let's move on to the K2 champions. 13 tangerines twinkling. Tangerine trophies twinkling. There it is. They don't have 13 trophies. But anyway, here's Bronco Balan.
After a relatively slow start, Jeju reeled off 8 in a row unbeaten before losing for a second time to Daejeon Citizen, with Andre Luis scoring the winner 16 minutes from time after both teams had traded goals earlier in the half. That setback in July would leave them unfazed as they never lost again for the rest of the campaign, a stretch of just over 3 months which saw them clinch in style at home against Seoul Eland at the beginning of November. The Islanders secured only one of a possible 9 points from their first 3 matches, with their first rivalry rivalry fixture against Bucheon FC 1995 on the horizon. Ju In-kyu's injury time header would then change the course for the rest of the season. Edong Ryul is the Young Player of the Year. He only appeared 14 times for the club in 2020, but in that short time he became an instant impact player. He did not begin to see significant action until the end of August, but when he finally got his chance, he took it. In only his third appearance for the club, he scored against Bucheon in a 4-0 rout to seal Jeju's clean sweep of their mainland city rivals. He followed that up with his first career brace against FC Anyang in a 3-1 win. He then collected 3 assists in successive matches against Chunhum FC, a 3-3 draw, and back-to-back 2-0 clean sheet victories against Daejeon and Bucheon. Jung-woon is the team's MVP. Several players on the team credit him for being a leading figure and contributing a great deal to the team's championship success this year. His discipline and ethic wore off on the younger players in the squad, and it led to excellent results, with the hope of even more to come next season. If not for him, Jeju would be spending a second season in K2. It is difficult to pinpoint what needs to be changed for a club and organization for whom everything seemed to go right on their way to a title, the first in 30 years. But there is one glaring consideration that must be addressed as soon as possible: senior leadership in the squad. That was the precise reason why Jung Jo-guk, who just retired, was brought into the team in the winter transfer window, primarily because it was the one key component lacking in the side on the way to the Islanders being relegated a season before.
All right, thank you, Bronco. And Pete, back to you again. Naughty or nice?
Yeah, as league winners, you'd have to put them on the nice list. The one thing I would say, though, is it's easy to be nice if you've got a house full of toys, and Jeju have certainly got that deep squad to play with.
That they did. Matthew?
Nice, just purely because they finished top. And yeah, I'm a Jeonbuk fan, and I'm going to, they've got lots of toys to play with. They're nice as well. So yeah, Jeju, nice.
Yeah, nice. It's got to be. It's one of the best stadiums. I know we say that all the time, but that one maybe a little bit oversized, but lovely with a sea breeze coming in. Like it down there. Happy to have it back in K1. And yeah, they were all sorts of fun to watch. And if you go, 75 million games without a loss like they did at the end of the season, then got to be on the nice list. All right, that's it for K-League 2. We're going to keep things moving because we got a lot more writers to hear from and a lot more teams to go through. We'll be right back with K1 after a quick break.
FNR is a revolutionary football-dedicated digital platform, the first of its kind in Australia. It provides a 24/7 live online radio platform experience, podcast hub, and acts as a content provider for TV, radio, and digital. Having reached millions of listeners and football fans since launching, FNR is accessible worldwide via its website or app, providing a platform to discuss, debate, and celebrate the world game. We are your voice of football, FNR Football Nation Radio.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, joined by Matthew Binns and Peter Hampshire for a very festive edition, gentlemen. Matthew, for those Patreons that are watching the video, you're the only one that's actually dressed for the occasion. That is a lovely Christmas jumper you have on.
Thank you very much. It's not a Daegu jumper, just, so people don't think I'm continuing my secret love affair with the club. It is actually a Manchester City Christmas jumper, but if it was a Daegu one, a Rika sky blue Christmas jumper, then I could be swayed. Daegu, if you can slide into our DMs, if you're listening,
get that one royalty free. Just I'd say five Daegu jumpers sent this way in return for the idea.
I'd be wearing it in the summer.
as you would. All right, let's move on. We are into K1, or are we? Because we are going to be starting with 12 Royals relegated. Busan I-Park proved to be a yo-yo club in their first season back up in K1. And to talk about the unfortunate season for Busan, here's Todd Wild.
Well, what can I say? A year that began with hope, optimism, and expectation that morphed into frustration, incompetence, and scandal. But enough about the UK. What about Busan I-Park? Well, 2020 was a damp squid. After a promising start to the season and some excellent individual performances, opposition managers quickly worked out the predictable tactics of Jeonbuk, who was exposed as unimaginative, stubborn, and slow to react to the challenge of K1 level management. As Route 1 Busan slid down the league and into the relegation playoffs, Lee Ki-hyun was tasked with rescuing the season. He was less Big Sam and more Ian Dowie, as I-Park were cut apart like Swiss cheese in their final 2 games. Losses against Incheon and Songnam helped snatch relegation from the claws of safety, despite the side holding a 1-0 lead at half-time in games Busan merely needed to draw. So, what went wrong? Well, amateur recruitment saw 6 attacking signings combined for 1 goal and 1 assist in 58 appearances, whilst Kim Jong-woo, Kang Min-soo and Dostonbek Tursunov all had unconvincing moments at the heart of defence. Injuries played their part too, as Jun Seok-yeong, Park Jong-woo and most importantly, creative dynamo Kim Jin-kyu missed long stretches of the season. On the contrary, iPark's youth academy products who did stay fit held their own, with Lee Dong-jun, Lee Kyu-sung and player of the season Kim In-hwan all looking at home in the K-League 1. The trio have 1 year left on their contract and should attract offers from Korea and abroad, whilst key players Homalu and Lee Jung-hyuk are out of contract, set to leave the club with plenty of goodwill from Ulsan fans. Looking forward, Paulo Bento's former assistant and youth team manager at Olympiacos, Ricardo Perez, will take over as manager. Expect the club to rebuild around some brilliant prospects from their academy, with the likes of Lee Sang-jun and Kwon Hyuk set to take a prominent role in 2021.
All right, thank you, Todd. And should be mentioned, we keep mentioning Patreon, but Todd did send in a video, and we'll put that up for folks to see. It's from the pub quiz we did recently, and it's pretty fantastic. So we'll get that out there for some folks to see. He's on my nice list for the video, but Pete, where would you put Busan iPark?
Yeah, firmly in the naughty list. Been causing trouble at school and everything. Yeah, it's just frustrating because I like to go down to Busan for a weekend. It'd be good to watch Gwangju there again. So yeah, naughty list for me.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
Naughty. You can't finish bottom and be nice.
You can't have that much talent and finish bottom and remain on the nice list. Yeah, I mean, when they were promoted, well, we said for years that club, that team, that roster could compete in K-League 1, and they didn't, and they couldn't. So, naughty list. We're moving on to 11 Mariners managing to get by. It's Incheon United. They can't all be winners, folks. But Incheon United were winners in the end because it was the Great Escape Part 5000. Incheon won 3 of their last 5 matches and 5 of their last 9 to avoid the drop. Again, Kim Dae-jung and Jung Dong-yoon scoring 45 seconds apart against Busan may be my personal highlight of the season. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and it was just absolutely fantastic for Incheon. But there was a lot that didn't go well for Incheon, mainly most of the season. They went 15 matches without a win in a 27-game season until they finally beat Daegu in August. They scored just 25 goals in 27 matches. Jung San was trusted in net for far too long before they handed it over to Lee Tae-hee, who stepped up once again. There's a lot to work on for Incheon. We all love them, but they've got some stuff to work on. Young Player of the Year for them would be Kim Jun-bum, the 22-year-old midfielder, played over 1,200 minutes in his first season with Incheon after moving over from Gyeongnam, was 83% accurate on his passes, averaged 4.5 interceptions per match, and pitched in with a goal and 2 assists. Pretty good season for him. Be interested to see if he gets that many minutes next year with being a little over the age quota. Team MVP, there's only one man who can mention here. It has to be Stefan Magosa. Finished with 12 goals, 9 of which came in the last 12 matches, including 2 post-split hat tricks. Averages about 3 touches in the penalty area per match, and more than any of the stats or anything else, is just the heartbeat of this team. I don't think there's any way that they survive the drop without him involved. It has to be the MVP. And the most important decision of the offseason: how are they going to avoid the same fate next year? Incheon, just figure it out. Finish 7th, please. Please. I mean, it's fun, but good Lord, it must be stressful as an Incheon fan. Pete, with all that stress in mind, naughty or nice?
They're going on my naughty list purely because in that prediction game we played, I held off going against them for weeks, and then the Daegu game, I went along with everyone else. I put Daegu, and then they get the away win.
So a personal vendetta. This is how I think Santa actually does things, so it fits.
I think nice. They've got a good manager in halfway through the season. I think they're looking better, and they keep this league entertaining. It's never boring when Incheon are here. So let's book the trend and putting them on the nice list. Try and stop me.
I want to say naughty because they just keep doing it, but I'm going to say nice because they just keep doing it. They keep managing to escape. They keep managing to stay in K1. providing those of us here in the Seoul area with one of the finer capital area stadiums to go and visit in the first division. So thanks for that one, Incheon. And yeah, like Matt said, they're always entertaining. So we'll stick with that. We'll keep them on the nice list overall. All right, let's move on to a team that, Matthew, I'm looking forward to your review for this one. We have 10 meager Magpies.
Okay, so Songnam FC. Things got off to a flyer for Songnam this season, taking 2 quickly taken goals in their first game of the season by a veteran striker who was clearly going to be incapable of sustaining that kind of pace. But it proved enough to convince even the most experienced Magpie fan to take aim at supposed experts and declare the Messiah have cometh in new manager Kim Nam-il. Alas, Kim's appointment proved merely to be an experiment in saving money on letters on his office door, as Songnam struggled to build on their previous year under Nam Keel and nearly suffered a widely predicted return to the second year, were it not for the haplessness of floundering Busan I Park beneath them. Well, and Incheon too. Let it not be forgotten that Songnam, in the full throes of a relegation race, lose 6, open parentheses, SIX, close parentheses, 0 to Incheon United, which is quite frankly unforgivable when supposedly fighting for your lives. Yes, they may have had a men sent off, but tactical naivety and perhaps 1 or 2 pairs of shrugging shoulders, should have been enough to see heads to roll. But it is Christmas after all, so let's find a positive. There were some highlights to be uncovered, namely in the form of sealed with a kiss puns every time Tom Slav Kiss found the back of the net. So at least the fans were happy just 3 times this season, as the Croatian striker who looked promising was benched for the majority of the year by the manager, making 3 starts and 11 cameo appearances. Fortunately, the Magpies board did see a decent transfer opportunity mid-season, snatching Na Sang-ho on loan and seeing the former K2 Golden Boot winner bag 7 crucial goals in their fight for safety and put himself as one of the team's candidates for MVP. Na has not opted to extend his stay at the club, though, and is currently batting his eyelids towards the capital. Another player who finds himself in line for MVP candidacy is goalkeeper Kim Yong-kwan. Sure, the man formerly known as Glory picked the ball out of the net far more times than he would have liked to this year, but his efforts to prevent what should have been a nailed-on relegation earned him a nomination in this year's Best Goalkeeper Award. Young Player of the Year? Hong Chi-hu? Exactly. Well, he may have only had 17 appearances, but the youngster seemed to show potential every time he was on the pitch and relishing the challenge in front of him. His enthusiasm culminated in his first goal of the year being the equaliser against Busan I Park in the final game of the season. Shout out should also go to midfielder Park Dae-jun, who built on his 9 appearances from last season with 17 this year. The biggest question for Songnam then, well, is this manager somebody Songnam should trust? There is respect to be given in keeping his tenancy for a year, but what we've seen is it's not exactly inspiring. It's going to take a big window and a shift in tactical acumen if the Magpies are to be any better next year. So, naughty or nice, they were utter dross for most of the year. And if they get anything but coal, then Stanta is far more forgiving than me.
Well, Pete, you want to follow that up real quick with naughty or nice?
Yeah, I think if they hadn't have bought Na Sang-ho, then they'd have gone down. So whoever was responsible for that transfer, give themselves a little present on the side, but they still got to be on the naughty list.
Yeah, I mean, they just were not fun to watch. Yeah, they just weren't fun to watch. Na Sang-ho was at times, but naughty for sure. And yeah, if it weren't for Busan falling apart at the end of the year, then they would be back in K-League 2. Moving on to, I think, the only man that could follow up that rant from Matthew Binns. We have 9 capitalists crying. It's FC Seoul. And to talk about the season that was, here's Paul Meat.
Not a lot went well for the Oyi Sangam faithful in 2020. It was certainly not joyful or triumphant either, but blooding youngsters such as Jung Han-min will be seen as a major positive. What didn't go well? Well, just 4 home wins, 3 caretakers, 2 money defeats, and a place in the bottom half. Just 23 goals were scored by Seoul this year. That's the second lowest in their post-2004 history. Even in 2018, when the club finished second bottom, Seoul still managed to score 40 goals. A real lack of firepower hindered them this season. And in truth, it was a miracle that they were not involved in another relegation battle. Young player FC Seoul's little drummer boy this season was Jung Han-min, who got 2 goals from 11 appearances in what was a breakout season for the 19-year-old. More to come from him next year. The team MVP, well, Feliz Navidad to Osmar, because it was a fairly prosperous año for the Spaniard. Seoul must make him captain or even vice-captain at least next year, as without this wise man, it would have been a very difficult season, even more so than it already was. But in terms of the most disappointing, Adriano returned, played just 7 times and left without scoring a single goal or even completing 90 minutes. He has lost a yard of pace and was more of a prancer than a dasher. For the off-season, they should be on the naughty list, but let's hope that Santa's got a brand new bag for FC Seoul and that he has some new players, some new additions over the winter. Finding a playing style under the new manager Park Jin-seop will also be a priority. They also need a star to go on top of that Christmas tree formation.
Gold yet again, Paul. Thank you so much. Pete, is it coal for Seoul, or are they on the nice list for you?
I think this is one of the difficult choices, but I think with all the shuffling around, possibly naughty list, but then it seems like I'm backing them next season.
Saying about next season.
I've seen him work wonders down at Gwangju. I'll edge them onto the nice list just because I think they're going to sort themselves out for next year.
Okay. Matthew, do I even need to ask?
Nice in terms of supplying managerial positions in this difficult year, but pretty much naughty.
Employment aplenty with no less than 4 managers for FC Seoul. Yeah, I got to put them on the naughty list myself because they had a chance at the top half and they didn't even go at Daegu really in that last game before the split. It's just a frustrating team to watch time and again this year, especially because they got the hopes up midsummer. They looked like a team that could be good, and they just kind of keep falling short. I'm hoping that they can do something next year, but yeah,
I'm thinking they've been naughty boys all year, but they've promised they're going to change their ways. so we'll give them a couple of presents and send them on their way.
They crashed out of ACL, losing to Shanghai United and Melbourne Victory in one of the easiest groups in ACL. They did not finish the year well, Pete.
Gone soft. He's gone soft.
They did not.
The kids have given him the puppy dog eyes.
Right.
He's just fallen for it. He's bought the Scalextrics.
Please, sir. All right, let's move on. We have 8 Blue Wings bouncing, and somehow Matthew is talking about Suwon.
I know. This follows the me hosting that podcast on Ulsan the previous week. I don't know what you're doing to me, but yeah. Suwon Blue Wings, it's been a season of 2 halves or 2/3 of underwhelming tactical ineptitude and a final third of restoring fans' faith. Yes, Suwon Samsung Blue Wings delivered enough in the end to keep their faithful fan base, well, faithful. Lee Seng was finally shown the door after poor performances saw them sucked into a relegation battle and seemingly out of contention in Asia, until the former Blue Wings player and ex-Seoul Elan manager took the reins to repay fans' unwavering support. Began with a couple of simple wins, followed by a first league super match victory in 6 years, before culminating in an improbable run to the AFC Champions League quarterfinals, made not only better by putting former J-League champions Yokohama F. Marinos truly in their place, aka in the list of promising J-League sides to get hyped up about, but not to worry about winning anything major. Not only that, Suwon did so with an injury-ravaged squad and looked good in the process. Park Hang-ha can think tactically, which, given the Suwon's board's start-chucking approach to transfer policy and managerial appointments in recent years, at least bodes well. Hopefully for the fans, if given the time, Park can build the team he wants for next season. What didn't go well? Well, as mentioned, everything under Lee Seng. His job saved by an FA Cup last season. Lee was trusted for a second campaign and nearly imploded the club. Poor tactics and poor man management left Suwon fans staring into the abyss while the board continued to back him. By the time he finally did leave, there was very little of Suwon seasons left to salvage. Player of the year? Well, Adam Taggart was far more subdued than he'd have liked, strangled by Lee Seng's tactical ineptitude, but shone when it mattered most. He was a huge miss during the team's Champions League campaign, but overall, I'd say Kim Min-woo probably had the best season for Suwon Blue Wings and is perhaps deserving of most of the praise. Kim started every match for the Blue Wings and was often one of their best hopes on the field, driving the rest of the team on. Disappointment, Terry Antonis had an underwhelming season. Unable to build on his first campaign, he found himself getting off to a flyer with a needless red card with the whole world watching on the opening day. His performances after never seemed to invigorate the team, and he only started on 7 occasions, with his other 9 appearances coming from the bench. Then again, who did play well under Lee Seng? Kirpich was also brought in as a striker to provide competition for Adam Taggart, but found himself unable to break into the squad and on the outbound list at the end season close, with just 2 goals in 13 appearances to his name. As for young talent, Kim Tae-hwan shone in the Champions League and rightly should get credit for his showings that helped propel Suwon to the quarterfinals, but Park Sang-hyuk was the most trusted youngster with 20 league appearances to his name and rarely subbed off. Playing in central midfield, he was heavily involved in Suwon's attacking play and one to look out for in the future. So, biggest question, what kind of team is Park Hang-ha going to build? He's inherited this one and he also inherited the one at Seoul Elan, but now we get to see him with his first window and we're going to have to see what kind of players he's going to buy, and this will probably form the tactics that he prefers to play.
All right, naughty or nice list, Pete.
Yeah, I believe in rehabilitation, and I'm going to get carried away with that Champions League.
Recency bias.
Straight onto the nice list.
Matthew,
just forget about the months before. Forget about it. It's gone.
Yeah, they've transformed under Park Hang-seo. I'm going to say nice. I think they're doing good things now.
Yeah, I think it has to be because they just looked a different team post-split, and we saw, I think, their potential in ACL. And I know technically ACL isn't part of this. We're talking about the season, but I just think that they're going in the right direction right now. And their ACL performance was without Adam Taggart, which they probably will be without him next year. But I just like what I'm seeing from them right now. So I'll agree. I'll have him on the nice list there. All right, we've got one more in the bottom half here, even though they finished with more points than a certain team in the top half. We have 7 Byungsu balls a-bumbling. It's Gangwon FC. What went well for them? Well, the kits were lovely. Ko Mu-yeol also had a nice first season with the club with 9 goals. Kim Ji-hyun had another solid season with 8 goals and 2 assists. And look, they were one of the most entertaining teams on their day. But the problem is that they weren't always on their day. They conceded 41 times this season, which was second worst only to a truly terrible FC Seoul defense at the beginning of the season. They picked it up later, but enough about Seoul. Gangwon once again lacked consistency for the, 20 millionth year in a row. They just can't seem to get it together. The young player of the year for me was Lee Kwang-yeon. 11 appearances for the 21-year-old as he continues to find his feet at this level. He's not quite there yet, but aside from a howler against Busan where he shipped 4 goals, he was relatively reliable between the 6, had a 68% reflex save percentage, and still needs time to develop into who we saw in the U20 World Cup, but I think he's showing signs. I think he can get there. As for the team MVP, any team that has Han Kuk-young will have my MVP. I just adore watching this man play. 94% passing accuracy on over 1,400 passes, 89% accurate into the final third, 104 interceptions, a goal, 2 assists, and was successful on 78% of his actions. He is just a delight to watch play. I will literally sing his praises when I'm not in a public setting. Most important decision of the offseason, we've talked about this before, it's how long can Byungsu ball continue? It's attractive, but the results have not been there in the slightest. They are building a team that looks a little bit more promising next year, as we've talked about with the rumors of Ishida and maybe even An Byung-joon. There are also other rumors. We'll see how that looks in January and February, but I think this is going to have to be his last go if they don't start to get the results. So that is the decision to make this offseason, is how much do they want to back him and how do they want to build the team going into next year. So, gentlemen, let's do this one more time for the bottom half. Pete, naughty or nice?
When I saw you were allocated for Gangwon, I knew Han Kuk-young was going to get talked about. I'm going to put them on the naughty list because I think so much potential, but ultimately flopped into the bottom half.
Yeah, same. They're frustrating, and that gets you on the naughty list. They should be doing so much better with the talent they have, and there's so much hype about Byungsu ball, but it's got them in the bottom half. So, naughty list.
I'm going to put on my content manager hat here, and I'm going to put them on the nice list because Cho Jae-won's video got hundreds of thousands of hits at the beginning of the season, and I thank you, sir. That was some fantastic stuff to start out the K-League season. So that, plus those fantastic orange kits, they're on my nice list. Judge me all you want. I don't care. It's fine.
All right, we had a great weekend there, didn't we, when we were allowed to travel around?
Had a fantastic weekend in Gangneung. That's where they should play all the time. All right, gentlemen, we are surprisingly running a little bit short on time, so we're going to take one more break. We're going to come back. We're going to do the top half of the K1 table, and I believe this week's Ulji Luis mailbag is going to have to be a pod extra for our Patreon supporters. But we're going to take one more break, and we will be right back.
Ulji Lewis is your neighborhood British bar and cafe located in the Old Jiro district of Seoul. Decorated in old English antiques and furniture for a true homely feel, you can enjoy homemade scones, cakes and afternoon tea during the day, and traditional British favorites like beef stew, English ale, and a fine selection of wines at night. Available for private parties or simply an evening out, Ulji Lewis is sure to become your favorite neighborhood pub. Be sure to mention K-League United at the bar during your visit, and you'll get 10% off your bill.
Welcome back to the KLU United podcast. I am your host this week for the final time in 2020, Ryan Walters, and I'm joined by Matthew Binns and Pete Hampshire. Gentlemen, we are into the top half. We only have 6 teams left for this wonderfully named list that we've got here. And we are going to start with 6 Felipes flying. Not just 1, but 6. Pete, tell us about Gwangju FC.
Yeah, that is a deadly strike force.
Right? Better than them roster rules.
It was a roller coaster year down in Gwangju, but if you'd have offered their fans a top 6 finish before the start of the season, I'm sure they'd have bitten your hands off. Despite losing all 5 games post-split, not being involved in the final round B was beyond anyone's expectations. The front 3, predominantly of Felipe, Willian and Onwon Sang, they took to K-League 1 seamlessly and also caused problems to the teams right at the top. What didn't go well for Gwangju? Well, moving across the street to their new stadium, they're still not won at that new stadium. They've lost 6 of the last 7, which also saw them finish on the same number of points as Busan I-Park down at the bottom. Park Jin-sop, the now ex-manager, he continuously tinkered with the Yellows' back line and switched between the 2 keepers far too much for my liking on almost a weekly basis. They do have, though, one of the most promising young players in the league in Onwon Sang. The 21-year-old had a standout season on the right wing, becoming one of the first names on the team sheet, even not considering the under-22 rule in the league. He's shown clear development from this season in K2 in 2019, and his sheer pace and drive also saw him share a pitch with Son Heung-min in the November friendly against Qatar. Your MVP, we've already mentioned him, is flying. It's Felipe. It's conceivable, very conceivable, that they would have slipped into the bottom half without him, and they could be plying their trade in K-League 2, considering the amount of points they've got. 12 goals to his name in 24 appearances. He always stays injury-free despite taking a lot of fouls, and linked up very well with countryman William. Their signings last year both disappointed up front. Marcos Urena, he's already left the club. He failed to score, as did Kim Hyo-gi, brought in from Gyeongnam. Their contribution didn't mount up to much. Off the pitch, this close season, it looks like it's going to be turbulent. They've got Kim Ho-young in as the new manager. Hopefully he can settle things, but lots of suitors for their better players.
It's going to be interesting. Are they on your naughty or nice list?
Nice list. Just the surprise of finishing in final round A.
Matthew?
Yeah, nice for me as well.
I'm going to say naughty. I'm going to say naughty just because I think they lacked a lot of consistency. And Pete, like you were saying, they haven't won in their new digs, their new home stadium, quote-unquote stadium, next door. I mean, it was always going to be a big ask in the top half of the table, and there's no way they finish with that few points if they're in Final B and playing the teams down there. But I'm going to say naughty. They overperformed, but you know what? I wanted more. All right?
Bah, humbug.
Right. All right. Let's move on to, I am not singing because I can't sing. So we're going to move on to 5 Sky Blues. And you have to imagine that's being sung by somebody that's not as tone deaf as me. And to take you through the 2020 season, here's Jung Moo-yeol.
In preparation of 2020 K-League, Daegu FC was thrown into a big chaos. They had to withdraw from China in the middle of preseason camp because of the outbreak of COVID-19 right after former manager Andre Gaspar suddenly departed from Daegu. Nevertheless, caretaker Lee Byung-geun picked up the pieces in the aftermath and then guided the Citizen Club to the 5th in the table with the return of AFC Champions League next season thanks to Sangju Sangmu's ineligibility. In this year's success, once again Brazilian playmaker Cezinha played a pivotal role. He overpassed last season's tally by scoring 18 goals and providing 4 assists, which account for half goals the team have scored this season. A new signing, Dejan Damjanovic, came back really strong in a Daegu shirt with 9 league goals to his name, while the Brazilian striker Edgar was mostly sidelined in the second half of the season because of the Achilles injury. Thanks to this incredible achievement, caretaker Lee Byung-geun is appointed a full-time manager and is now looking forward to the next season. This winter, the Sky Blues will have to reflect on their maiden appearance to ACL in 2019 and prepare well for a busy football calendar. With Daehan and goalkeeper Gu Sung-yoon expected to leave, Daegu urgently need to find their replacement. On top of that, adding more depth to the squad is needed to be able to compete in street competitions, as well as in case they will have a few players called up for international duties for World Cup qualifications and Olympic football.
Thank you, Muyol. And do we even... Rika's involved here. Cecina's involved here. We're all just going to say nice, right?
That's correct. Nice list for me.
Yeah, nice for me as well.
Yeah, it's the same thing we always say about Daegu. Nice stadium, nice kits, nice players, best mascot. Nice. And to see them earn ACL through league positioning as well is a really nice progression. And as we've talked about before, it's a proof of concept for citizen clubs. So lovely stuff from them. All right, this top half, we might as well just call it the Pete Hampshire hour, because, Pete, you're back up again with 4 soldiers serving.
Yeah, I seem to have snatched all the top half teams, don't I? Kim Tae-won, Sangju Sangmu, they faced the prospect of certain relegation from the off this year, but still managed to register a 4th place finish. With military contracts coming to an end in the summer, that disabled them somewhat with Kang Sang-woo leaving, but especially at home, Sangju looked like they had the beating of any side in the division. They scored over 20 goals fewer than Pohang, just 1 place above them in the table, with no real centre-forward taking on that mantle to push them higher in the table. Saying that, though, young player Oh Se-hoon, he looked impressive without really bagging so many goals. He got 4 this season. His performances looked decent in 13 appearances. And another young striker as well, Oh Hyun-gyu, he only made 5 appearances this year, but from what I saw of him, looked really good for a 19-year-old and very promising. The MVP that I thought for Sangju is already left. No surprise, Kang Sang-woo. Just fantastic for Sangju. Really pushed them into the top 3 early on in the season. And I think he still deserves to be thought of as the MVP. Much more than an attacking fullback. He marauded down the wing, drifting into the middle. He also took set pieces and penalties for Sangju. 12 assists added to 8 goals. Makes him one of the players to look out for next season down at Pohang Steelers. In terms of disappointments, Jeon Se-jin didn't manage to get many appearances after looking promising at Suwon Blue Wings. And also, I'm sure the citizens of Sangju will be disappointed that they don't have a club to watch next. Well, the same side moving down to Gimcheon. And this off-season, well, Kim Tae-won, he always builds a decent squad with what is given to him. It'll be just interesting to see how they start the K2 next year, considering they'll be strong title favourites.
100% title favourites. Are they on your naughty or nice list?
Nice list.
Matthew?
Nice, because I'm scared of Kim Tae-won.
I mean, anytime you got a team that knows they're going to get relegated and messes with the top half of the table as much as Sangju did and are as entertaining as they were at times, they got to be on the nice list. So I'll make that one unanimous. Pete, you're up again. We've got 3 Steelers surgeon.
Yeah, I love the Pohang Steelers after my visit down there in June.
That's all it took. Your visit to Pohang is part of the K-League's official documentary, as we found out, killing time during the Christmas party. Didn't even know about it, but anyway.
Look out for that white shirt I was wearing on that day, by the way.
Right.
Beautiful. Kim Gi-dong's side, they earned many plaudits for their football this season, with the manager celebrating a 3rd place finish by signing a 2-year contract extension. Finishing 10 points off the top this year and qualifying for ACL football, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that the Steelers could compete for the title next year if they're to keep their better players. Some memorable victories came with a 5-3 victory over Gwangju and a 4-0 demolition of rivals Ulsan towards the end of the season. They did see consecutive home defeats to Jeonbuk and Ulsan in June, who they can't seem to find a way past. And they also succumbed to Ulsan on penalties in the FA Cup. And while they were top scorers in K-League 1, they also conceded a considerable amount more than Jeonbuk and Ulsan above them. For young players, I think you know who I'm going to say. It's Sungmin Kyu on the wing. He's pushed himself into national team reckoning. 11 goals and 6 assists is quite astonishing for a 21-year-old who's got plenty of bottle on the pitch, lots of influence. He's attempted the most dribbles in K-League 1 this year. He's got the 5th most touches in the opposition area. Brilliant for such a youngster. And also in the forward line there, they've got so much strength and depth up front. My MVP, I've gone for Ilyachenko. 19 goals, 6 assists. 30-year-old has bagged so many different types of goals this year. And Pohang could face a battle to keep hold of him this winter. Most disappointing, not much in terms of Kim Gi-dong's side, but Namjoon Jae was brought in from Jeju. He made just 7 appearances, totaling 50 minutes, although he did face some heavy competition for his place on the pitch, to be fair. And going into this winter, well, 37-year-old Kim Kwang-suk, his contract's up after featuring 27 times in defence. They're going to need someone else to play with Ha Chang-rae, someone to strengthen that defence if they're really going to push next year.
And are they on your naughty or nice list?
Oh, it's got to be nice. Get down to the Steel Yard if you can. It's my favourite stadium.
Oh, okay.
Well, Daegu, but then, yeah, it's just the location of Pohang. You walk in, surrounded by rivers and steelworks. It just feels like a proper football day out.
All right. Matthew?
Nice, obviously.
Yeah, it has to be. They were entertaining. They were just fun. And it's nice to see Pohang back in ACL and back near the top of the table where we kind of expect them. All right. We have 2 teams left, and continental success aside, up next we have 2 runners-up, because that's the season that it was for Ulsan Hyundai here domestically. To talk about that season and a little bit more, here's Dan Croydon.
It was the longest of seasons. It was the shortest of seasons. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the post-split of despair for Ulsan Hyundai in 2020. Indeed, with several key departures in the off-season, it must have been a bleak clubhouse for Ulsan back in January. But the Tigers built back better. Key additions Yoonbik Garam, Jong Sung-hyun and Cho Hyun-woo came in to reinforce the core talent of Junior Negrao, Shin Jin-ho and Dave Twas. And so the curtailed K-League campaign began with great expectations for Kim Do-hoon's Horangi, and for most of the spring and summer, his side lived up to that billing. 1 defeat in 20 between May and September put them firmly in the K1 driving seat. However, as the nights drew in, doubt crept into the minds of the Ulsan players, and Kim Do-hoon became haunted by ghosts of title chases past. When it came to facing Jeonbuk, Ulsan's composure simply disappeared, as if magicked away by David Copperfield. Sorry, I had to get that one in there somehow. Ulsan had hard times getting results post-split, and the season ended in all too familiar tragedy in the final weeks. However, buckle up for a K-League Christmas miracle. Just as it seemed all was lost, there was still time for the ultimate final chapter twist. A whole cast of fringe characters banded together for an Asian Champions League campaign that was only briefly foreshadowed in the season's prologue back in February. A string of excellent displays meant the Horangi finally got their paws on some silverware. Asia's finest, in fact. Kim Do-hoon, the much-maligned manager, led his team to an astounding 9 wins on the trot in Qatar, and ultimately the club's 2nd ACL title. It was an about-turn in character and a moment of Yuletide redemption that Dickens himself would have been proud of.
All right, thank you so much, Dan. And Peter, we'll start with you because I feel like I know what Matthew's going to say. Naughty or nice?
Yeah, it's the nice list with an asterisk on the side for being cheeky through the year.
Yeah, Matthew?
I don't know. I guess. But at the same time, you know, they haven't... Okay, just let's put them on the nice list and get it over with. We took them on the naughty one last year and they've won the ACL, so they're nice. I've said it. Move on.
I have a longer memory than a week. They're on the naughty list. Get it done against Jeonbuk. Sorry. Look, I'm super happy about ACL. It's great to have a K-League team win that, but it's super frustrating to watch a team that's talented enough to be the best in Asia not be able to beat Jeonbuk. Naughty list. Naughty list. Coal and nothing but. No, I'm just kidding. Naughty list for sure, but thanks for winning ACL. That was real nice. But naughty list. All right. There's only one team left. Matthew.
And Jeonbuk win the K-League. Yes. Deck the halls with K-League trophies. Jeonbuk still sit atop of this K-League Christmas tree and atop of your hearts like a very, very hefty Christmas dinner. And they've welcomed home the FA Cup this year as well, like a long-lost relative who stopped talking to the family over a decade ago, but has turned up on the doorstep brandishing a Christmas cake and a selection box. So they're back in, but I digress. Jeonbuk not only won 2 trophies for the first time in their history, but broke league records too, collecting their 8th league title and an unprecedented 4th in a row. In the end, it was their performances in the latter half of the season that got them over the line, grinding out the wins to turn the screw on Ulsan in first. Also, 4 wins and a draw in 5 meetings against the Harangi certainly helped. Jeonbuk looked humans at times, but they never looked done. And it has to be said that they knew how to get the results domestically when it mattered. And the key word there is domestically, because it was abysmal when they went to the continent, crashing out of the group stages for just the second time in their history. Yes, they did have injuries that mounted from their late winning run, but there could be no excuse for their poor showings at the start of the year. One of those late absentees was that of Son Jun-ho. Who knows how they would have fared if he was available, especially after claiming the league's MVP award after a stellar season. Son shone bright in a team that often wavered, with his work off the ball being as crucial to his work on it. The same could not be said for Chae Bo-kyung, however. While the centre-back didn't have a horrendous season, his place in the team early on in the campaign showed why he was always considered a backup selection. The return of Hong Jong-ho and Kim Min-hyuk as the main centre-back pairing for the second half of 2020 only served to further underline this. As for young player, it falls to Cho Kyu-sung almost by default. The former Anyang man struggled to get going, but with the burden of the goal-scoring mantle being lifted somewhat by the signing of Gustavo, he did eventually improve. No longer meeting the quota next year, though, and with minutes likely difficult to come by, Cho looks to be taking his military service early next season. The biggest question for Jeonbuk in 2021 is that of their new manager. Jose Moraes has bowed out on a high, and assistant to him and to former manager Chae Kang-hee, Kim Sang-sik has taken the reins. Kim has no managerial experience himself, but is the first former Jeonbuk player to take charge of the club and has been in the backroom staff for 7 seasons, making him part of the management team that has won 6 league titles, an FA Cup and a Champions League medal. It seems more like a smooth transition of power for Jeonbuk, with little expected to change on the field, but things may start to become clearer once the club begins pre-season in early January. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Pete, naughty or nice?
I think it's time for reconciliation for me with Jose Moraes. Get him on the nice list, and a great appointment as well for Kim Sang-sik.
Well, okay. A Christmas miracle, Matthew.
Yeah, nice list. I just think the way they turned that second half of the season round, it was impressive when you take it all in, looking back.
Yeah. Naughty, stop ruining all of our fun. Okay, and that is it for our 3rd edition of the 22 teams of K-Leaguemas. But if folks want to get more involved, how can they do so, Matthew?
Well, Ryan, if people would like to get more involved, they can find us on social media, all at K-League United, or they can even email us at info@kleagueunited.com. But that's not just all the ways they can contact us. We have a Patreon. More. Yes, you can support us on patreon.com/K-League United, where you can watch a video of this recording with probably all our faults and failings not cut out. And as well as podcast extras, statistical pieces, Korean overseas pieces, pub quiz questions. There's a mixture of things going on over there at the moment, and tiers start as little as $1, but $3 and $5 tiers are also available.
That's right. And I feel like now I've got to do it in the announcer voice. That's right, Matthew. And also, if you'd like to listen to the podcast live, you can do so every Thursday on Football Nation Radio. I shouldn't besmirch Football Nation Radio, by the way. FNR's got some good stuff going on, and the A-League season is starting very soon, so that'll get you through these winter months. And if you subscribe to the podcast via Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, or wherever you download your podcast, and you leave us a review, you will be entered into the year-ending K-League kit contest for a Suwon Fc away kit. They always have lovely things, Suwon FC, and we dug up a 2017 away kit in honor of their return to K1. They weren't in K1 in 2017, but that's the kit that we have, and that's the kit that we're going to be giving away because it's a good one. But for 2020 and an amazing season that was in K-League, thank you so much for your support throughout, and thank you for listening this week. For Matthew Binns and Pete Hampshire, I'm Ryan Walters. We'll see you next year.
공격 공격기 Kim Shin-wook.